It's been pretty common in my experience looking around at the resources regarding the dip exercise to see a split attitude about its efficacy for the strengthening and growth of muscles involved. Some sources say that it is a subpar tricep exercise, similar in effectiveness to a regular bench press. These same sources also sometimes claim that dips are inherently more injurious to the shoulders, elbows, wrists, and tendons involved compared to alternative variations. Those sources will often dismiss the dip in favor of promoting isolation exercises in its wake. But it is rarely any sort of high raw stimulus isolation like a barbell skull crusher or JM press. It's much more likely to be some sort of cable pushdown or kickback. The other camp I see is much less numerous in its proponents, but much more strong in its reasoning in my observations. These are the people who see dips as an excellent triceps exercise for both strength and size, and use them to fill a role that very few other exercises can. With these two camps in mind, it's clear to see the polarization and the great gap between those who dip and those who don't. It is the goal, however, of this video to convince you of the nuances and untold aspects which go into making dips an effective tricep exercise in the first place. Firstly, we must address the claim that dips are not a good tricep exercise to begin with. This is a claim which is based on a misconception about dips, similar to misconceptions which are common about other compound movements. We understand that if we squat high bar, close stance with an upright torso, there's a large demand placed upon our quads and a hypertrophic stimulus is created. People who, however, choose to chase loading increases at the expense of maintaining a quad-specific form will probably not get the same hypertrophic results. It is well understood that the more hip-biased variations, like low bar squat, are less effective at stimulating quad hypertrophy per unit of fatigue. It seems silly then to call the dip a bad tricep exercise when it's most commonly performed in a way which is not specific to the triceps. We should instead be charitable to the dip and assess its efficacy as a tricep exercise only if we see it being performed in such a way which is maximally skewed towards tricep development in the first place. That form, in my experience, based on anecdote and also some basic biomechanical knowledge and publicly accessible technique resources, kind of looks like shoving your elbow back over your wrist, an upright torso, legs together and forward for a stable core and to affect the weight distribution positively for our purposes, and the shoulder blades moving naturally and freely with no arbitrary inhibition and a controlled eccentric, perhaps even a little bit of a pause at the lowest part of the dip. This form, which is what you've been seeing me do in the background of this video, is one in which the triceps will undergo a large and effective range of motion, have a high degree of mechanical tension demanded of them, and a stable body with which to maximally exert high levels of effort over time. Doing dips like this is significantly harder than leaning forward, letting the chest and delts eat up all the work, and so your ego might have to take a bit of a hit to perform them this way. For reference, at the time of this video, I weigh between 207 and 210 pounds, and couldn't do 15 of these strict controlled dips with body weight alone when first trying to do them, despite being an intermediate bencher. The second thing I would like to address in this video is about joint preparation and tissue preparedness for dips, because many people might say that the form that I am showcasing here causes them injury. Again, we can remember the squat. Trying to force a deep squat position ahead of your abilities is typically a path to aches and pains, and we can say the same about the dip. I have a simple set of recommendations for you if you are wanting to do dips with this form. Firstly, speaking about warm-up, I would recommend holding a support hold for 2 to 3 sets of between 20 and 40 seconds. This will greatly prime your shoulder stability and lockout position to be comfortable, while being minimally fatiguing for the actual sets. When warming up for your dips and for performing working sets, I recommend a controlled eccentric as low as you can go and a pause with active tension in the bottom range. This is going to force you to become strong even in the most vulnerable position of dips, while maximizing stimulus to fatigue ratio. Making sure you have strong external rotation in your shoulders is also important, so don't skip your rotator cuff work. Secondly, let's talk about intensity. As we've already discussed, people have a tendency to go heavier on dips than they should if their goal is to target triceps, and they will use various compensations to allow for this. However, if you use the form I described earlier, you may need to do the opposite and start by lifting even lighter than you think you should. This means easing into the new ranges of motion using assisted dip machines, reverse bands, or just spending weeks to months performing dips with body weight to hone in on the form. For most of the people watching this, simply doing the dips as I described will make them so much harder that body weight reps to near failure will be more than plenty to stimulate growth. It should also be noted that going too heavy while trying to use this form will more than likely force you into the aforementioned compensations, which will make it much less effective for targeting the triceps. When it comes to how to factor the volume of dips into your weekly routine, I would say to count each set of dips as one set for triceps, though your chest and shoulders will still receive a good amount of work from them, so keep that in mind for your total weekly pressing volume. Treat dips for triceps the same way that you would treat squats for quads. Not the only part of the puzzle, but a very, very large one. If you want to have a triceps-focused pushing session, you could actually open the session with tricep dips before moving on to something like a bench variation and finishing with a shoulder and tricep isolation, making for a short, sweet, and highly effective approach to pressing muscle training. I recommend also trying these for a certain rep goal, say 40, 50, or 60 reps, depending on your skill and ability, and taking as many sets as you need to get there, never compromising form. I found that this protocol is highly effective for blowing up my arms in particular, and I've been using it for the past several months to great effect. That's all I had for you today. Like the video if you liked it, and feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'm very glad to answer them. Thank you for watching, take care, train hard, and have a great day.